Hey guys, it's Brian again. Today we're going to be looking at a pressure washer. Customer said that they don't have very much pressure on it and oil keeps coming out of the oil fill while he's using it. And you can see the oil residue on the machine. Before we get started, as usual, this is a working shop. I try to do these videos straight through, but there's times I got to stop and help my customers when they walk in or on the phone. Otherwise, it's usually just a straight run. At no time I'm trying to tell you this is a substitution for taking your stuff to a certified shop, qualified repair place. But these are just to help you when you're out on the job site. So there are some things that typically would occur that are not occurring in these videos, but these are just to help you when you're on the job site. So don't come on my comments bashing because, my work area happens to be dirty or none of that garbage. If you're not here to learn something, then just move on. There's a billion other videos. Watch those videos. Just go away. Nobody wants to hear your negative crap. There's too many positive comments that pop up for your 1 in a million comments to sit here and tell me how I'm a terrible person because my shop is dirty. I'm repairing equipment. I'm not cleaning up the shop. It's not maid service. But anyway, before we get started, safety is always number one. Again, the customer said the oil's coming out through the fill. You can see the residue here. I started to take the pump off, and I thought, let me pop up here real quick, and we'll do something, show you guys some things that you can look for. But you can also see that cloudy white. Now this is another pump because this pump's actually going to be replaced. You see what that looks like, and you see what that looks like. So this pump is actually going to be replaced. And first thing I'm going to do is pull these bolts out right here, these Allens. And I will, on a lot of pumps, I will typically replace the entire pump when this occurs. The higher end pumps may not be as cost effective to do that, but on these less expensive AR pumps, by the time you go into replacing the parts that are needed to stop the water leakage into the back end, your labor and materials and whatnot, it's actually going to be about the same price as the whole pump. Not to mention, when you get, it's just like a car engine, when you get water, and which is why this is milky like this, you get water into the pump. When you get water mixed into the oil, this crank is just like a car engine. It's a 3-cylinder car engine. But instead of intaking fuel and putting out exhaust, it's water that goes through the system. So imagine your car engine. If you get water into your crankcase, you're not just going to flush it and send it out on its way. You're going to replace bearings. You're going to replace connecting rods, camshafts, crankshafts, whatever the case may be, because you know, or you should know, that when you introduce water into the crank and you're running this thing at 3,500 RPM, your bearings are actually getting damaged. Your racers are actually getting damaged. So by just draining it, flushing it, putting it back into service, you still run the risk of this thing having a catastrophic failure in the back end. So you just wasted your time and money on your parts on the front end and not dealing with the back end. Not only that, again, by the time you replace the bearings and everything in here, you've exceeded the cost of a whole brand new pump. So it's just more cost effective to replace the pump than it is to do some of the actual repairs. Even if you're doing the labor yourself, the labor's free for you, but the parts still exceed the cost of replacing the entire pump. So now we got this, we're just going to pull it off. And these are the pistons, or plungers, whatever you want to call them. Everybody's got a different name for them. And they're not cracked, it doesn't appear. And if you got your fingers are a little dirty, that's good, because if you run them around like this on the pistons or the plungers, it'll catch into cracks. And you would see a hairline. Oh, excuse me. You would see hair. Looks like a hair on the pistons, but they're not cracked, so we're good. But we know that the seals that lead into the pump are bad. That's how the water got in there, which means these seals in here are bad, so they've got to be replaced. But again, because the water's actually in the crank, it's just not going to be worth the time and the trouble to actually do that. So we're just going to replace the pump. So let me move this out of the way. I went ahead and took the 4 bolts out. There's also a set screw that goes into the side hole here into the shaft. I'll show you that on the new pump when we go to put it on. So we're going to take this last bolt out here, and the pump will just drop down. And if you take a couple pry bars, and what you're going to do is you're going to stick them in between the body of the pump and the crank of the engine. I'm just going to work it off. Sometimes it's easier than others. If they've been on here a long time, they can be really difficult to get off. Trying to do it around the phone makes it difficult too. Come here. It's starting to come right off. Loosen up now, you pull it. There we go. But sometimes you'll get rust on the engine shaft, and when you do, it binds up in the pump, and it can be really difficult to get them off. So you see the keyway? No, you don't. Now you do. You see the little hole sitting on top. That's where the set screw is, or was. Now the pump's off. Move this over here. Oh, let me do this. I'm going to pull this cap off. You see what that looks like? That's a water and oil mix right there. That's bad. That's a killer. That's what I mean about water getting in the crank. Now, if you don't have the money for a pump or the parts, you're just trying to get done, I'm gonna put some cleaner up here. We're gonna clean this excess oil off. And you don't have the money for the parts, or you don't have access to the parts, this is no guarantee. But if you take, dump that oil out, oil and water mix, flush it real good with, I would prefer put paint thinner in it, because that's a lot thinner than oil. Shake it around in there, dump it out. Do that a couple times, get that water out of there. Once you've got the water out, the water and oil mix, put fresh oil in it, and you can run it for a period of time. Eventually it's going to give up, without a doubt, but it might get you through the job until you're paid and you can go get what you need. Here's some anti-seize. I'm going to put this on the engine shaft. I like the anti-seize, so the next time I have to do this, it's not so hard. But you had anti-seize on it from the factory. Now all we're going to do, the pump comes with a new dipstick, comes with the set screw for the unloader. Put that to the side. So if you look inside, I don't know if you can see it or not. You see where our keyway is. So we're going to rotate that around in relation to the pump up here. Sometimes that can, the engine up here. Sometimes that can be a little difficult. Trying to turn it by hand. Just put something in the keyway and work it around. Come on. Like I said, the camera's in the way more often than not. Let me get a different screwdriver. So I rotated it around. Clean that out of there. sure your key stays on the shaft, and you'll work it in there. Now, as I mentioned a while ago, there's a set screw, and if you'll run this around, there's a slot on the side. You'll eventually be able to find the set screw. And I put it where it's at simply because it's easy to get to. Tighten it up. Take one bolt, stick it in place, and I'll move it back over here. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing up there or not. Close enough. You know what I'm doing. I'm putting the bolt in. Finish tightening this up a little bit by hand. And we're going to place all of these bolts in by hand first. Yeah, don't come on my videos with a bunch of negative comments about what I do or what somebody else is doing or other companies, and I don't allow negative comments. Constructive comments are one thing, but bashing people and companies and whatnot, I don't allow that. I will block it and delete your comments because it's easy to sit back and make comments and complain when you don't know a situation. Best thing for you to do is just shut up. And if you can't learn from the video, find another video. I had one the other day. The guy had nothing to say about what was happening in the video, whether it's right or wrong. He just didn't like the fact that I had tools laying around on the table that I wasn't using, or had extra rags laying around on the table. You know, that ain't got a thing in the world to do with nothing. If you got time to walk around and take care of all that, then you got time. You're not busy enough of what you're supposed to be doing. My job is to fix this equipment. At the end of the day, I clean my shop. Until that point, there's no need in doing much of that, simply because I've got so much equipment that comes in here. I stay busy with that. I don't have time to play housekeeping. So, pumps on. The set screw was in. I'm going to push this seal in place here. It's a little bit pushed out. The pumps come with oil in them. They also come with a new dipstick. So we're going to take this dipstick, we're going to put it on right there. My hand's a little oily, so I might use a wrench to get this little plastic plug out. We're going to unscrew this little cap. I'm going to put the dipstick in. Get in there. And the last thing to do is set this unloader. They do not come set from the factory. So if you run this machine right now, this pressure can be anywhere. Low, high, whatever. So what you would typically want to do is put a gauge, and you would adjust the pressure without pulling the trigger, just letting it build pressure. You would set it to whatever your pressure is supposed to be. In this case, it's supposed to be 4,000 psi. So you would adjust this up or down until you get whatever pressure you're supposed to have. But I'm going to show you how to do this without a gauge, because not everybody has a gauge. But I'm going to take it outside, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, so what I did, you saw I hooked the water up, hook the pressure hose up, turn it on, gun and everything's all set up, bleed off the air. Start the engine. While it's running, you're going to increase until you start to hear the engine really starting to have an issue with your pressure. Pull the trigger a couple times, bleed it off a little bit, listen to it to increase it a little more, and if it really starts to struggle, bring it back until that evens out. Now you're set at the maximum pressure that this can actually operate without stalling your engine. Now down here, it's a little hard to see, there's a little collar. You're going to take that collar, you're going to run that collar to where you can see the hole. There's a hole right there. You're going to take the set screw that comes with it. You don't want to put this in there beforehand, because if it's just in that hole without being locked down, it's going to vibrate out and it's gone. The set screw is not very big. So we're going to put the set screw in, get it started. All right, get in there. There we go. Now we're going to run that nut all the way up until it hits the bottom of the unloader cap. And now it doesn't turn anymore. Okay? Now, what that does is it prevents you from screwing this down even further and overworking the engine. So it's up and it locks this from actually getting any tighter. And you're going to tighten that set screw up. And if you have to, you can loosen this up to get to the screw a little better. You can tighten it up. Now, because this is a 4,000 PSI and this is a 13 horsepower engine, this was meant for what you got here. There won't a whole lot of bog gonna happen in this engine. But on your smaller engines, you'll hear the bog a lot quicker and a lot more evident. The pumps themselves, these pumps will produce more pressure than these engines can handle. So the engine is actually what dictates your maximum pressure a lot of times. So that's pretty much it. So we've replaced the pump, we've set the unloader, and we know what we're looking for now. If you got any questions or anything, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. Unless you're complaining about somebody, you're complaining about a company, then we're done with that. You're gone. We're not here to do all that kind of crap. That's not what this channel's about. This channel's here for you to learn something, not for you to complain about what somebody else is doing or how another company is done. Go somewhere else and do that. Go to Reddit. But again, got any questions or anything, you guys be safe. Give your mom a call. Tell her you love her.